stories in a truthful way. And without giving a spoiler on where season 2 is going, I think Bear Clan exists in our world, and it opens us up to lots of not just legal stories, but human stories. And I think that's very exciting for our characters.
This is playing on the CW network in the United States. There are people that have never heard of the Bear Clan Patrol. And so to have that here as like a way to kind of express like what we can do as citizens to make some change in our society and talk about the things that maybe we don't like or we disagree with, that's really powerful.
Sally, the CBC has always been committed to telling Canadian stories, and when you look at a clip like that with the Bear Clan Patrol, very Canadian. Can you just talk about that and moving into Indigenous storylines and telling them, and maybe talk briefly about a show that's going to be coming to the schedule in the fall that deals with the Indigenous story as well?
Sure. I think that it's so important that we are telling stories that really reflect our country and people in our country across the board. And it's important that those stories are, of course, shining a light on issues that are of concern, but also some of the positive change, some of the positive stories, ways communities are coming together from all different backgrounds. And I think, so proud that we were able to be involved. We weren't there. I mean, I'm so impressed with this team to go out and do that. I mean, it speaks to this entire series. But to be part of change is an exceptional honor, and I think we have a long way to go. Burden is a fantastic kind of beginning, and we're very excited that we have recently announced a new Indigenous-led drama series, Trickster, based on Eden Robinson's novel Son of a Trickster. It's going to be a gorgeous story, and it is co-written and will be directed by Michelle Latimer, who you saw here, who directed on Burden. So, there was an announcement earlier today that Catherine made, which was great, about our commitment to diversity. We take this very seriously. We have a responsibility, we have a role, we have a desire to just keep expanding not only our storylines, but to develop talent and cast and crew so they can tell their own stories.
Darren, at E1 you've been involved in many Canadian shows, Mary Kills People, Private Eyes, Ransom, Cardinal, Nurses, Burden of Truth. This feels like one of the most Canadian shows, though, because Winnipeg is mentioned. There's no, it isn't like the city standing in for an American city or anything like that. It's very Canadian. Is that an accurate comment? Do you think? Am I off base on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. It's there was never any. The decision was never to shy away from the setting. It was always going to be Winnipeg for Winnipeg. I think it gave us an opportunity to really showcase a part of Winnipeg that most people haven't seen. Even the countryside setting of Millwood, is very unique. And again, I think what's great about this show is it really provided a platform to showcase some phenomenal stories. When we first heard about the Bear Clan in the kind of the pitch phase, I remember it was pitched to us, and I hadn't heard of it, and we thought it, just as a story sounded cool. And then when I heard that it was actually a real thing, to me that was just amazing, because that just gave us an even bigger opportunity to do something that was even more unique, more relevant, and just kind of tied into what it was. And I think, I think the storytelling, the characters. Again, I think if you try to hide what it is, sometimes it just doesn't quite work. And so I think by bringing as much authenticity to Burden, to the setting, really helped the project.
And as a follow-up for you, it was mentioned in a clip about the CW. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the CW viewership is a little bit different from CBC. A lot of genre programming, supernatural, that type of thing. So, how do you market? How do you promote to a younger audience a show like Burden of Truth?
So I think with Burden, what worked so well was that it and to be honest, initially, I think when we started seeing promos and stuff like that, we were curious to see how they would change it. Would they make it a bit more soapy, or where would they go? But what we realized was that they really didn't change it up that much. They were pretty true and consistent to what the show was. And I think what was great about season 1 was that you obviously had Kristen, front of the show, very much, very familiar face to the CW, so I had that fan base already built in. I think the fact that the case in season 1 involved high school girls, even though it wasn't a high school story, it still kind of lent itself to kind of get in and attract that audience. So I think they really enjoyed season 1. They loved season 2. Season 2 just started airing last week. They're already committed to season 3, and I think it speaks to the strength of the story. I think they liked what it was. It wasn't something to be tweaked and played with, and it's done really well for them.
Kristen, did you ever view yourself being back on the CW with a different project?
Not with this project, but Mark Pedowitz, who is the president of CW, is a wonderful human being, and he really liked the show. And he sent me a message before it aired last week. He sent me an email. He's like, "Good luck tonight. We love the show. Here's an article that I especially loved about it." He sent it to me. So I'm so happy to be on the CW with the show, because I really do love them over there. They've been incredibly supportive and very human with me, which is really nice.
And to see such a Canadian show achieve that in the U.S. market for all of you Canadian producers, our stuff travels well. People like our stories. It was like I was saying to Sally beforehand, a forbidden world doesn't have to be, a foreign planet. It can be Winnipeg. And to the American audience that likes the show, they've never seen Winnipeg before, but it's interesting. And so I think that specificity is what audiences like.
We've talked a lot about the relationship between Joanna and Luna. We just have a short clip that we want to play here before we move on to a couple more storylines and start wrapping up. So let's take a look at that clip.
Are you going to take the plea? You don't think I should? It's your decision, Luna. There was another woman. She might have been waiting for him. It's just a theory.
No, I didn't do it. Which means someone out there did. I'm gonna figure it out.
I will search day and night if that's what you want. But I can't guarantee that I will find anything.
I don't know what to do.
Okay. On paper, this plea is pretty simple math. 4 years is objectively fewer than 25. If you're convicted.
What are my chances at trial?
Never will wager on your life, Luna. It's a strong case. But if you take the plea, you will always have a record that doesn't go away. And it will change you.
I'm scared.
I want you to know that whatever way you go with this, I am here for you. Okay? I will be in that courtroom today, right by your side.
She's so good.
Yeah. Of course, on screen the actors are wonderful, but let's give a little bit of love to the writers in the writing room. Either Kristen or Kyle, do you want to talk a little bit about the writers room and perhaps some of the challenges of writing a character-driven legal drama where you're learning as much about the characters as you are about the case?
Okay, so you're not in the writer's room, and none of us write on the show.
Right.
So, caveat here. from my experience in the room and from talking to Brad and the other writers, I think that, like, especially between season 1 and season 2, it was a real challenge to find a case that kind of what we want to do is up the stakes, give it a little bit more adrenaline, but still get into this, the murder. So I think that they found that challenging, but there's a bunch of them, and they sit and they really work it through, kind of looking at, they pull from what's going on in the news, and they find something that works within the world of corporate law, which is not like murders generally. Sorry, just on point. And I think that that's something that they also like to do. Like between season 2 and season 3, Brad goes and like obsessively researches everything. He comes to all of us with like a page of options. Like, there's this case, this case, this case, this case, this case, and then everybody kind of looks through and we find things that, you know, appeal to different people, and the CBC looks at what they really want to explore, and I think he really likes that. His nerdiness really loves that.
Yeah, I think that they love that they have a platform where there's a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down, you know, because they're all very keen to integrate important social issues and commentary into the stories we're telling head on. But they know that they have this vehicle that an audience will come to because of what it appears to be, and then they get this terrific message as part of the package. So I think the writers get really excited by that, and I think that's a big part of what drives them. I also think a big part of what drives them is a show where you've got all of this courtroom activity and investigation, but you've also got a real insight into the characters' personal lives and what's really driving them outside of that world, and how those two worlds collide often, and how the characters behave within those circumstances. That's pretty interesting to write for. I'm sure it's good to act for, too.
Yeah, it is. But I was just going to say, as you were saying that, I also thought a lot about, like, season 1, as Sally kind of mentioned, it's about kind of facing your past, learning the truth about your past. I think season 2, for Joanna at least, was about, like, am I this person? Am I tied to this? Even if he's no longer existent in my life, like, is this who I am, and am I bound to this as my future? And is it possible to change? And so every season they kind of ask a question, and the case fits in with whatever that question is. And in some ways, from what I understand, and this might change, but season 3 is a little bit about absolution and forgiveness and that kind of questioning for some of the characters, and what does it take to do that? And the case will help to push them as far as they can into that realm.
Okay. Now, Kyle, can you want to give a shout out to the writers in season 2, season 3?
Okay, well, I'll list off the 10 writers in the room for season 3. Adam Pell, Brad Simpson, Eric Putzer, Julie Puckern, Felicia Brooker, Laura Good, Hayden Simpson, Mary Galloway, Madison Thomas, and Migwen Fairbrother, who's also the cast. And you think about the way the show has evolved, and people like Michelle Latimer directing on the show, and